Hello, gentle marketers. Welcome to episode 54 of the Gentle Business Revolution podcast, the show where we talk about marketing your business by disrupting the current marketing paradigm and changing it to a gentler approach, one that's based on empathy and kindness. As always, I'm Sarah Croce, I'm your host here, and you know that you're in the right place if you are a heart-centered entrepreneur or change maker who is looking for a different, a better way to market your business. Or you might also be a marketing impact pioneer, so that's someone who's working for an organization who does business for good. Today's episode falls under the P of product, and I'll get into it in a minute, but real quick before we begin, a quick gentle reminder and a bit of a plug that in a bit more than 2 months from now, I'll be running a Kickstarter campaign for the upcoming Gentle Marketing Revolution book. I talked in more detail about this in episode 50. So if you haven't heard that, sarahsnacroce.com/GBR50. And I think it'll be really fun. I really looked into this and I'm like, first I was really hesitant about Kickstarter and asking for money and all that. But now I think I really got the right angle and I'd love for you to participate. I already set up a pre-launch page and you can find that by going to sarahsnacroce.com/Kickstarter. And there you can just hit follow to get notified when we go live. And of course, I'll keep you posted here as well. So back to today's episode, I had the lovely opportunity to talk to Sylvain Massot, who's the founder of a local company here in Switzerland called Impaakt. That's Impact with 2 A's and a K. So Impaakt. And I want to read you what it says on Impact's homepage. It says, find out the true impact that companies are having on the world. We bring together voices from all over the world to measure environmental and social impact. So after almost 3 decades in international banking in London and Geneva that have enabled Sylvain to develop his investment and management skills, he has now co-founded Impaakt and another company called Fondation ReBin. I don't know if I'm pronouncing this right, if it's in French or in English. But there are 2 ventures that seek to bring innovative solutions for impact investing. Fondation or Foundation ReBin operates in Benin, again, Benin, I guess, in English, in the field of waste recycling. Impaakt, on the other hand, is a web platform that leverages the collective intelligence of a large community of members to assess the social and environmental impact of large listed companies. In today's episode, we talk about what Sylvain learned from impact investing and what the conscious investor looks for when placing his money. How Impaakt, the company, aims to hold big corporations accountable when it comes to sustainability. So no more greenwashing or rainbow washing or any kind of washing. The crowdsourced business model that Sylvain is building, that's really based on trust. Also, how Impaakt is different from B Corp, so the B corporations, the certification and their business model, how the 2 of them are different. And then at the end, I also ask him what he has learned in the past 4 years, transitioning from this banking sector to entrepreneurship. And of course, there's much more than that as well. I couldn't list all the points here. But without further ado, here's my conversation with Sylvain. Hi, Sylvain. So good to speak to you. I'm so excited for our conversation.
Hi, Sarah. Very nice to be on board today.
Thank you. Yeah. So I just read the listeners the official bio, and I kind of want to hear it from your side because it's not exactly the usual banker story, right? So tell us a bit, from your personal side, what triggered this idea of creating Impaakt? Where did you see a need?
Yes, you're right. I mean, quite a big change in my life. Just as work background, I really spent 25 years in international banking. in London and Geneva. And I was advising pension funds and wealthy individuals with their investment.
Right.
And then, 5 years ago, I thought that it was time for a change. First of all, there was a personal need. Being involved in finance, I was keen to make sure that we can also use finance for good. And 2015, when I started, is the year when the United Nations announced these big goals for 2030. And you see that there's a lot to be done.
Right. We'll talk more about those in a minute, but continue.
Yes. And there was also an opportunity. As a banker advising clients, I had a huge frustration together with my colleague and co-founder, Bertrand, which is that people were asking, to see the impact of the companies they had in their portfolio, the impact of the investment. And then in reality, we had very few tools available to measure such impact. Mm-hmm. Hence, they need to do something to fulfill that gap.
It's interesting, though, because would you say, so that was like 5 years ago, so 2015, more or less. Is that was it coinciding, this increased need for people to know what kind of impact companies made? Was it coinciding with the United Nations goals that were set out? Was that more or less happening at the same time?
I think, on the one hand, the goals were probably a wake-up call for many people, not just investors, but obviously also consumers, a member of the public. But there was also underway in the investment community, a change where investors are asking more than simply the financial return.
Right.
They want to make sure that their investments are also positioned well to have a positive impact, whether socially or environmentally, on the planet.
Right.
And that changes really started, over the last 10 years, but has accelerated quite clearly. Whether it's the trigger is the goals, or whether it was something which was going to happen anyway, that's not completely clear to me.
Yeah. Still, it's interesting that in the financial industry, there was an increased awareness for impact, which then triggered your own need for wanting to do things differently, right?
Absolutely.
So explain to us briefly how your crowdsourced model works. When we first discussed offline, I told you that it made me think of Wikipedia. So kind of something that is, created together. So tell us how impact works.
Yeah, but just for you to understand, what we want to do is measure the social and environmental impact of large companies.
Right.
Large companies are complex, whether you look at the multiple line of businesses they're operating in, the multiple countries, and assessing the whole impact that a Nestle can have on this world is just very demanding. And I would say, the brain of one single expert is not enough to capture all the facets of that impact, which is where what I call collective intelligence or crowdsourced intelligence is coming in. We need the brains of many individuals who each will contribute a small piece to the assessment of the impact of the company, like Nestle. And it's the amalgamation of all these impacts which will really enable us to form a comprehensive view on the impact of a given company.
Right.
So yes, you can draw comparison with Wikipedia. You can draw comparison also with social media medium, where you have many individuals, members of the public, not these designated experts who are the contributors.
Right.
And if you want, and really in a nutshell, the way the Impact platform works is as follows. First of all, we're building a community of, I would say, like-minded contributors. So we're talking about people from universities, journalists, investment professionals who care about the impact that companies have on the planet and society. or just simply, not even contributors, but like-minded user, people who are interested to find out more about that impact.
Right.
Then we train that community to understand why this impact is critical and how actually you measure the impact so that they can write good analysis. Once we've trained the people, we ask them to write small pieces of analysis, always, one company, one topic at a time. We're not interested in finding out, what do you think about Nestle in general? We want, specifically the impact that Nestle may have on the ocean through plastic pollution with the plastic bottles.
Mm-hmm.
Once people have published the analysis on our platform, our community, the other members of the community are going to read the analysis. And on the basis of the analysis, they're going to say, well, this impact of Nestle on the ocean through plastic is positive, negative. Is it big? Is it small?
Mm-hmm.
And then once we have that, it's really for us to aggregate all the data, all the rating we get from all the members on the platform to form a view, to form a rating, to have an impact score for a company like Nestle on a scale from -5 being a very negative impact to +5 being very positive.
Right. And then that is accessible to the public. Whoever comes to your website can find that, or is that hidden away?
Impact, the company is what I would like to describe as a social business. That means that, we're a business which is a for-profit on the one hand, but at the same time, and it's very critical, we have a social mission. And our social mission is to make impact measurement of these large companies available to all. So to answer your question, that information, if you want to find out the impact of a given company, it's free.
Yeah, that's wonderful. Because I really believe that there will be an increased awareness and interest in that kind of information. When I was doing my research, another site, a crowdsourced site that I often refer to when it comes to LinkedIn trainings is called Glassdoor. That's where people can go find out about, jobs, and then also information from other people from the community about what they think about the employer. So it's kind of this employer branding site. And I think really more and more people will also be interested to know what impact the company that they're interested in to work for has on the world. So it's not just like, is it a good place to work here? Is there free coffee? Is there free lunches and that kind of information? But more like, am I contributing to a bigger picture if I work for this company? So I really think that's where we're heading. Another
If I may, you mentioning Glassdoor, and it is interesting, and I would say we are not just targeting investors, we are targeting consumers who want to find out about the impact that the products they buy have on the planet, but also employees, who want to find out about whether they're working for a good or not so good company.
Yeah.
We're not so dissimilar from Glassdoor, except that what we published is based on vetted public information. You will always be able to find out the sources that people have used to come up with their analysis. That's a bit different from Glassdoor.
Right. Yeah. And kind of, yeah, the other thing that comes to mind when you say this is trust. Because if you're relying on these external sources of information, there needs to be a lot of trust in this community. And you mentioned that you're training them. I think that was probably the first step where you're like, well, in order to build this trust, we need to really make sure that there's quality in these analyses that people are sending in, right? What other things would you say is the basis for this trust towards this community?
Yeah, I really think, trust work both ways. We need to inspire trust to people who are going to use the data on the platform, but we need also to have the trust of people who are going to contribute on the platform.
Yeah.
And I guess on the first point, what I would say is we really need to show potential users of the platform that what we do is as unbiased as possible, which is why, we're going to use public sources only. So maybe somebody has a very interesting insight on a company, but if it's not public, how can we check that this information is actual? So only public sources. All the analysis on our platform are checked by our team of reviewers who make sure that, the analysis are meeting all the required criteria and has the sources to support what's in the analysis. And, the final algorithm, which enables us to calculate the score, is also public. So as much transparency as possible I would say is the most important thing for our users. As far as our contributors are concerned, making a commitment to the platform by providing content. Well, first of all, we need to make sure that what we publish is actually going to be used to change the world, to change the way the companies are behaving, change the company's impact. So we need to show them that, what we do will really matter. And then on top of that, I would say, we are also rewarding them, whether it's financially or indirectly by making donation. So they see that, what they do get properly rewarded.
Right. Yeah, in a way, what you're doing is you're holding these big corporations accountable, because of course, in the recent years, what we've kind of seen is this greenwashing, and you introduced me to the term rainbow washing,
Yes.
where it's, we talk about diversity, and so it's one thing if this information comes from the company and they say, oh, we're doing all these great things. It's another thing to have them be held accountable and actually, the users and the greater public actually say, well, really? That doesn't really feel like, supporting the planet to us, right?
Yeah, and you're absolutely right. That's really, let me first say, we are agnostic. We are not pro nor anti-business. In the sense that, at the end of the day, we want to make companies, as you rightly say, we want to make companies accountable for the impact they have on the planet. And that means that, we need to make sure that we are never only relying on one type of sources, not just, sources coming from companies. I mean, information from companies is critical, it's useful, but we are also going to look for information, coming from NGOs, from the public society in general. And that means also that when we recruit members who are going to become contributors, we need to make sure we have the right balance. Not just, the financier guy working from New York or London or Geneva, but people coming from all sorts of horizons, from all sorts of social backgrounds, who are going to come with, different angle. And that's, again, it's the aggregation of all these angles which form a view which is as balanced as possible.
Yeah, and that's where the transparency comes in, because otherwise, if you're just delivering one view, well, I think what people, I write about this in my upcoming book about gentle marketing, what the conscious client really wants is, no more lies, no more sneaky things. They really are looking for transparency. And so the companies who are being more transparent, those are the ones who are going to do well. And the ones who come up with these cheesy, greenwashing campaigns, people are way smarter. We can't take people or customers for fools anymore. And so I think those are the companies who are not going to do well in your scores, especially as well, right?
The one of the issues you have today is probably either the lack of available data, which means that you have to over-rely on the data coming from companies, or it's simply that, this useful data is sometimes hidden.
Yeah.
So one of the way to address it is, as I say, is you're having people coming from all sorts of background who can bring up sources you would not necessarily think of, but which are trustworthy sources. The other thing which we are using is artificial intelligence on top of collective intelligence, just to really comb all what's available on the internet, millions of articles, to bring up, trustworthy sources, which are not just the obvious company sources, to form the opinion.
I love that. Talking about transparency, let's talk a bit about your company. You have investors that are supporting your. Would you call it a startup, or is it already beyond the startup stage?
Most definitely a startup, in the sense that we are not yet generating revenues.
Right.
The company was actually formed in 2018, so it's a young company anyway. Mm-hmm. And as I said earlier, it's a for-profit. Right. So it's a company with a social mission, but we believe in for-profit, just to generate all the financing we need to make this a bigger story. And as far as investors are concerned, when you do something like that, which is, you're building something which is new, mm-hmm. using collective intelligence in finance, that's very unusual. People tend to rely on experts.
Right.
And when you build something which is going to take a lot of time to really have all the required content, you need patient investors. So basically, we are blessed with patient investors that are very much aligned with our mission. Mm-hmm. They're not here just, to make a quick return on their investment. Mm-hmm. They're really here to support us in building this into a successful story. So,
that already is a huge paradigm shift, and coming from the investor market. So it shows me that even in this investor scene, there are people who are in it for the long run. They're in it for the change. They're in it for innovation. And they're like, yes, I'm ready to place my money and, not have, like you say, a quick turnaround or not maybe just trusting, not maybe even knowing that there, when this money is going to come back, if it's going to come back. Yeah. So, wow, congratulations for finding this trust. Your company is all based on trust on in investors, trust in communities, trust, and also having companies. Then actually, let me get to that, because okay, we know how it works, but I'm also interested how you will then generate money. You kind of hinted at the investors, so tell us more about that. How will Impaakt generate money?
Yeah, I stress again the fact that our platform is open to the public,
right?
Because it's our core mission. So getting individual information, you want the score of Nestle or you want the score of Procter & Gamble, that's something which we will never charge for. But at the same time, and because we come from the world of investment, because we had this frustration at professional, we know that the large pension funds will increasingly have to assess the impact of the companies in their portfolio.
Right.
So there are already providers, but without going into too much detail, they're not really necessarily focusing on the impact of the companies, but more the practices, more the reputation. But these pension funds are already paying subscription to get that information. We feel that what we provide is the next step. So to answer your question, the idea is we will build sophisticated tools which enables pension fund manager, wealthy individuals to really assess the impact that their portfolios have on the planet and society, do search to get better, maybe investment companies than the one they have before. And we will, so subscription on the one hand, and then on the other hand, what we intend to do is to write detailed reports on companies where you can go, not just, the total aggregate impact of that company, but what makes this company a positive or a negative contributor.
Right. Yeah, it's so interesting. It made me think of an episode earlier this summer where I interviewed Lisa Peterson, and she just published a book called The Mindful Millionaire. And when talking to her, I kind of told her, well, I'm not sure the world really needs more millionaires, at least not those who are just in it for the money to get more wealthy and more rich. But now that you explained how your model works, I'd love to, see more mindful millionaires invest in companies who are, doing business for good, and so somewhat give it back to the companies that need the support to make an impact.
If I may, on this point, and this is back from my days as a banker not so long ago, you really have a shift, a generational shift. I mean, the new generations who are inheriting this wealth are definitely much more mindful.
Right.
And so it's not so much the bankers deciding that they're going to take on board that impact. It's the asset owners, these wealthy young individuals who are absolutely insisting on the fact that, they don't want their money to be just managed for the sake of financial return, but they really want that impact to be taken on board as well.
Yeah, that's wonderful. I love the direction we're going in. Sylvain, how is what you're doing different from B Corp? I'm, a big follower also of the B Corp movement, and I've had a previous conversation with Sophie, who's a B Lab mentor. So tell us kind of what's similar and what's different.
Well, first of all, let me say that we at Impact have a lot of respect for B Corp and what they're doing with the B Lab.
Mm-hmm.
But still, B Corp is slightly different from what we're doing in the sense that really B Corp relies on the engagement of companies.
Right.
The companies themselves who say they want their impact to be measured and they want to pass that B Corp certification. That's very different from us, where we don't, if you want, we don't ask companies whether they want to be rated or not.
Right.
We rate both good and bad companies.
Mm-hmm.
By definition, B Corp will show you only good companies, the one which have passed the certification.
Mm-hmm.
The second point for me is that B Corp largely relies on information provided by the companies themselves. It's basically a questionnaire that companies will have to fill and then score points.
Right.
We use all sorts of sources, whether pro or anti-business. And then the last point, which is also critical, is that this B Corp process is very thorough, no question, but it's very complex and time-consuming. So at the end of the day, B Corp, at least at this stage, really focus on small companies, while we target the large one, the large complex one, and, the use of collective intelligence, because it is indeed very complex.
Yeah. And you're saying complex because I remember you told me that you actually went through the process yourself of getting B Corp recognized.
Yes, my partner did indeed.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah, I agree. And
so they say, basically there's room for both initiatives. They're not actually exclusive.
Yeah, they're like you're saying that they're working on different levels and from different point of views in a way. It's the company itself and the public view. So I went on your website and I just kind of looked for one score, and so I found that Amazon's impact score is minus 1.76.
Indeed.
So tell us about that score and kind of what it's based on and how you found that score.
Yes, indeed. So as a reminder, on the platform, companies have scores which range from -5, being very negative impact, to +5.
-5, and Amazon is below that.
No, -5 to +5, and Amazon is -176.
Ah, okay, sorry.
So if you want, it is on the negative side overall, but it's not, as very often the case, never all white or all black.
Right.
It's a mixture. It's quite a poor score, but maybe let me just step back and explain the use of the Sustainable Development Goals.
Yes.
The scores are derived from doing analysis on each of the 17 Sustainable Development Goals. So when we say Sustainable Development Goals, we are talking about these United Nations goals of 2015, but goals to be achieved by 2030, which range from eradicating poverty, eradicating hunger, gender equality, which I would say are type of social goals, and more environmental goals, like basically addressing climate change, the life on land, the life underwater. So what we do is we use this framework because we don't want to reinvent the wheel. There is an existing framework. Right. And we will gather many information on Amazon, on whether Amazon is, offering its employees decent work conditions, contributing to reduction of inequalities, what they do as far as energy, renewable energy is concerned. And the point being that, if you take a given company, it will always have positives and negatives. As I say, it's never all negative nor all positive. But just to give you, before going into the detail of Amazon, just to give you a feel of where Amazon is currently on the platform. Amazon is one of the companies with the poorest score. Mm-hmm. If you look at companies in the sector, Facebook is at minus 0.55, Apple is around that level, and Alphabet, the parent company of Google, is at +1. So why? Why is it this way? Amazon is really scoring very poorly on the Sustainable Development Goal 12 on responsible consumption and production, because the Amazon business model, leads to the destructions of millions of unsold products. It's producing a lot of packaging waste, and they haven't necessarily found out the right solution to address it. There's been a lot of controversy about work conditions, especially, in Europe, the way people are being employed, the working conditions, around the COVID crisis as well. Yeah. So a lot of negative points. But even, as I said, even Amazon may have some positive. For example, the affordable energy, they are an extensive user of renewable energy. So it's when you take all these impacts I've described and many others, which we don't have time to detail, and we put them together, that we get to this score, which you can then really compare with Facebook, Apple, Alphabet, companies in the same sector, and which leads us to believe at this stage, and we are in the early days still, so we're still building content, that Amazon is the one which has the poorest, the most negative impact in the sector.
Wow. What is the most positive company that you have right now in the scoring?
At the moment, companies like Cisco have the most positive rating.
Interesting. Yeah. And I think the minute this information kind of gets more public and more publicized, well, hopefully that will impact the company as well, and they will have to kind of reconsider certain things. What came up for me is like, well, obviously Amazon right now, they could care less. They're, doing really well. And so in a way it's like, yeah, you're doing really well, but look, the public is not impressed by the way you're doing it. So yeah, I really hope that this information will get out to a way bigger public. To some extent, there's already been a lot of articles about Amazon not being the greatest company to work for, I think in general, but yeah, more of this information needs to be shared widely for sure.
Yes, indeed. And it is, it's not just perception.
Yeah.
Based on solid fact, it's really analyzing the different facets of a business, like the one of Amazon, which leads you to get to this final score.
Yeah. Sylvain, this podcast is about marketing and the marketing and business paradigm shift. How do you market impact?
That's a very good question. It's if I think about marketing, what is marketing impact today? At this stage, it's not seeking clients. It's building a community,
Right.
Building a community of contributors and users. And I would say we do it using traditional medium like advertising on Facebook and LinkedIn, but always with very specific content. So what we do today to target individuals, it's advertise the free access of the platform, but more importantly, the opportunity to learn with our certification, the training we provide for people to understand what impact is about and how you write good analysis.
Right.
Which is really something which has been very successful, I would say, in the last few months, where people were stuck at home also, where they had more time, to contribute, making clear to people that they will get rewarded. And then on top of that, what we are going to do increasingly is build partnerships with organized communities. So that can be NGOs, that can be universities. And there, what's in it for them is basically, the educational content that we can provide, the access to our data for research purpose. But that's, at this stage, really our marketing is about, making ourselves known, but, really adding contributors to the platform.
Yeah, and you do it in a way that immediately the person who sees your marketing knows that you share their worldview and you share their values, and it's all about the common change that you're wanting to see in the world. So I think that's exactly the right way to do it. Yeah. You were pretty up there in the banking sector. When you changed and decided, okay, I'm going to go off on my own and become an entrepreneur, what have you learned in these last 5 years about being an entrepreneur, and what have you learned for yourself and also in the business world?
Yes, you're right. It was quite a big change because working for 25 years in large organization and then becoming an entrepreneur is actually quite different. By the way, it's not just, impact is what I'm spending the most time on, but I'm also having a foundation on the ground in Africa, which is dealing with waste, the waste problem in some West African countries. So if I made the changes because it came at a time when I really needed to do something different. It sounds trivial, but basically, really need to give back after many good years in finance by using my experience, my expertise to really make some form of difference.
Right.
And so I would say that this adventure of the last 5 years has been really exciting, very personally rewarding to feel that, you're contributing to make a change. I learn about, resilience because, it's not a smooth path. There are ups and downs all the times. I learned about, the need to be flexible because, you were using the word earlier of startup. Yes, we are a startup. And one of the things about the startups is that they keep reinventing themselves again and again until they have found the right business model. So I learned to have a flexible mind. I think I have that flexible mind, but yeah, it is completely different adventure, but again, a very exciting one.
Wonderful. I'm very happy for you. Last question that I kind of ask all my guests. What are you grateful for today, Sylvain?
Well, I'm grateful to have had that opportunity to do something which I feel really passionate about. So I'm grateful to have found the right partners because, Impact at the origin, it's my partner Bertrand who came up with this fantastic idea. So finding the right partners, having the time to build, with, as I said earlier, patient investors, building something which is very ambitious. So no guarantee of success, of course, but having the opportunity, the time to do it, I am very, very grateful for.
Wonderful. Yeah, I'm grateful for you and Bertrand for launching yourself in this adventure, and I think you're definitely creating something that the world needs right now. So thank you for that. Thank you for this conversation. It's been very interesting and beautiful. Please share your website with my audience and tell them where they can get in touch with you.
Thank you. The website is www.impact.com, and impact spells IMPAAKT.
Wonderful. Can they connect with you on LinkedIn as well?
And they are welcome to connect with me on LinkedIn. That'll be a pleasure.
Wonderful. Great. Thank you so much for your time. This has been a very interesting, educative, and delightful conversation. So thank you so much, Sylvain, for taking the time.
Thank you, Sarah. It was great.
I personally thought that was really, really interesting, and I hope you enjoyed it too. You can find out more about Impact at impact.com. Again, that's with 2 A's and a K. And the show notes at sarahsanacroce.com/GBR54. Also, don't forget to go over to sarahsanacroce.com/Kickstarter and hit notify to be sure to know when our Kickstarter campaign goes live in December. Next week, I'm back with a solo episode about pricing myths, and I write about this in the upcoming book, but you'll get a little preview here, so make sure to tune back in next week. I hope you'll join me on this journey to a kinder marketing and business paradigm. Let's be the change we want to see in the world. Talk to you soon. Bye.